Alright, I've shown you how the whole game at this point, so now I'll show you how I made it. So this is the whole Unity engine right here. And you can see there's only kind of a few objects here, but I'll play and you'll see how everything exactly works. But well, I guess if you watch this far, then sure you'll get spoilers. That's where the secret room is. But you don't know who's in there just yet if you haven't found it yet. So there's that. But we have the player right here. Main player has a camera attached to it, so the camera will follow the player wherever it goes. Has a trigger collider, and basically a trigger is just that it doesn't actually like touch stuff. It just knows if it's like colliding with an enemy, and then if I press space, that'll start the fight. We have these grids, which sort of like any sort of like graph paper you have. I can where's the tile palette? So this is like a little tile palette where I could basically sort of draw on the grid to add a bunch of tiles basically, and that's how I got sort of my ground. So there's different sort of layers to it. Obviously there's the walls, which are actually a layer under the ground, and then on top of the walls is these like ores right here, whatever I guess you would call them, that are placed around. There's that, and then for like the secret one, I obviously had to have like a the walls like overlap with the ground with like layering on that, so this has its own tile map and all that. So yeah, that's that. So yeah, all these grids make up the whole area of it. This game object, oh, this is this is unused. I was gonna spawn enemies with this one, but I ended up spawning them using the player, which has, as you can see, has all of these 6 enemies right here. Who's there? I have no idea. But yeah, it also has an animator, which you can see the animator for it, which it has all these animations, but like they're not connected to the actual thing. What I'm using is a blend tree. Basically, it takes like, if the player is going up, then it'll do the whole walking up, and if it's idle, then it won't move. If it's walking, then it will move or make the animation do something. So that's how I have that working. Also, these are the various scenes, which are basically kind of like a level or whatever. One has the ending, secret ending, start screen, the overworld, and the battle scene. Which I can show you the battle scene right now. So yeah, this is just the like base battle scene. I have all these buttons shown right here. Oh yeah, you might be wondering how I'm spawning the enemies. Oh yeah, now you know it's there. So I guess the illusion's gone at this point if you're watching this, but whatever. But basically, these are all game objects that were originally in the scene, but I put them into the assets so I can sort of clone them, and that's how I have them spawning basically in there, so that like every time you load up a scene, it basically reloads it. And so in order to make sure, like, once you defeated an enemy and it didn't spawn again once you defeated it, that's how I had that list of prefabs, and then deleted one once I did not need it anymore. Probably go back here. So like once I beat one of these, it would go down to 5 enemies in here, and that one would not no longer spawn again. So yeah, that's how that works. So this whole battle manager basically takes the notes right here. Basically, it's uh, sorry. These are the notes like that would appear right here that you can listen to like understand like what notes the enemy is playing. I had this sort of model after the music theory stuff. A lot of this game, I mean, this whole gameplay is kind of inspired by some of the games on like musictheory.net, and also if you ever played the Ocarina of Time, Ocarina kind of works like this, where you just recreate a tune, another NPC plays, and that's all you have to do. Yeah. Also has the sprites for each of them. Yeah. And if you want to see, here are the two sounds for the ending. The first ending uses a piece of music from Super Mario RPG, and then the second one at the end it uses that. I have sounds for each of the tuba, or each of the notes for each of the instruments. I just got this by going into MuseScore. Had like one note in my put like one note in the entire piece of music, and then exported it as a MP3 and then put it into here. So that's how I have that all together. That's what makes up most of just the like objects and all that. Here are like the tiles, which are basically like, well, the tiles for the grids. I made this quick thing for the start button that just loads the scene for Overworld. Yeah, let me show you the scripts now. So this is the actual coding I did to make everything work, basically. So first of all, we have the player movement script, which makes sure the player object always is like in every single scene by doing this don't destroy unload. It's gonna take a bit to load. I was gonna put this on at the end of the actual thing, but might actually make this a separate video. It's gonna take a bit. Okay. All right, there we go. There we go. Okay. Okay, so this is the whole player movement thing. It gets the horizontal axis of the player and the vertical, basically. And that's how it moves itself within the 2D plane, like X and Y. So vertical would be, Y going up and down. X would be, horizontal, left to right, and all that. We also have like setting, this is for the animation thing. So how that works is basically it knows whether I'm going up or down and all that, depending on if like I get the move is the like vector 2 and okay, wait. Okay. Vector 2 is basically kind of like a coordinate thing, basically. There's a this is the y, this is the x, and there's a comma separating them. So it gets the x of move, which is vector 2, that's containing like the velocity of like which way I'm going, and if it's higher, if it's a positive number, then it knows I'm going right, so it should make my character look like it's going right. If I'm going down, it would be a negative number with move y, then it would know I'm going down, and it would set the animation to do that. So here's a spawn function that I do at the start of the game, which basically, is it the start? I thought I did. That might be in a different script, whatever. But basically, it just spawns all the enemies currently in there, and it checks. I have a string of list called dead, where basically once a enemy is dead, it gets added to this list, and if their name equals one of the strings, which is basically just a string is just a bunch of letters, basically a word or a phrase, whatever, just whatever you want it to be. If their name is equal to anything that's in the dead list, then they don't get spawned. So yeah, and if you defeat all 5 of the enemies and you don't like beat the secret Larry boss, then I'll just load the regular scene. So yeah, that's how that works. Enemy script doesn't really have any functions. It just contains the notes, like the tune of the enemy, like what notes you have to play to beat it, and like what notes of the instrument correspond with it. Um, okay, so this is the whole battle manager. That's how the whole battle scene. This is how the whole battle scene works. So basically, like as I'm transitioning between scenes, we have the player collider is setting all of the like variables for the enemy that for the battle manager that then uses it in the next scene to basically do everything with the buttons and all that. And so it counts how much progress you're making. Once your progress basically equals the amount of notes in the tune, you then win. And so that's what loads it. Loads the win condition in the scene. If you're wrong, then you have to restart and you have to do it all over again. This is the enemy tune button. Basically, it plays like one of the notes and then waits a second and then plays the next one. So yeah, kind of basic, but it's still a lot to do and it's kind of hard to make sure like the correct variables go to the correct uh, just the correct data gets into the correct place and so everything works. And it also makes sure if you beat Larry like whenever, then it'll put you in the uh, secret ending. If not, then you'll just go back to the overworld and that'll be it. So yeah, and also you might be wondering, yeah, here's the sprites for. I think I was gonna have like on the overworld, the enemy would look like normal after you defeat it, but did not add that. But still, this is the tile map. Basically, it just has all the sprites that all the individual sprite. It's just like a bunch of sprites into like one image. Then I like separate each of them so I can use each individual tile. Even though I only used a couple for this one. I used your winner. This is from like an actual. This is somehow in an actual official game called Big Rigs, which is like a really badly made game. Has obviously not good grammar, so thought it'd be funny to add, even though it's likely a reference only I would get. But yeah, so that's the whole thing. Which yeah, it may not look like too much, but obviously, I mean, if you're watching this and you don't understand a thing, it makes sense because this is kind of complicated to get at first. But really, the whole coding process, it's mainly just sort of problem solving and even kind of like uh, a lot like sort of algebra in a way where instead of just numbers, it can be sort of any sort of object or thing, basically. So an image, would be like, well, a sprite would be like, an image, an image that you would apply. A sprite can only have store a image into it, or an asset, I guess, but a string can only uh, have like a string of letters like that, or it can be something like that. It can only equal that. It can't like equal a zero. You can't have it equal a zero because that would be an integer, like a number. So it's basically all about that, and also sort of problem solving and puzzle solving, sort of. You have to put like the correct functions in the correct order so everything works out and you have everything. And the game is actually sort of playable. But yeah, obviously that wasn't the best explanation. I'm trying to work on being able to explain code to people still, but you know, yeah, I tried to do it at least so you can get the basic picture of it. Maybe it wasn't the best, but yeah. So yeah, that's the whole process. That's the whole like actual game, how I built it in the engine basically, and close that I guess. So yeah.